Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast, UFC edition. Today, we are going to be talking some UFC with our UFC expert, Mr. Chuck Marlowe. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Got a fight card tomorrow. Got a UFC fight night coming to Columbus very soon again.
It sounds like
COVID doesn't cancel
it. Well, I know what you're saying, that there was a fight that I was going to go to that COVID did cancel in 2020 in March.
Yeah, March. I had some really good tickets around March. I think it was like a year or two, maybe even 2 years ago. And that's like right when COVID was really starting, and then they shut down the basketball games, and then everybody doesn't know what was going to happen. Everybody was trying to figure out what's going to happen because this was like when the pandemic was first starting. And then Dana White announced, because I had bought tickets to the event that was Cody Garbrandt and I can't remember who else he was supposed to fight, and Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades were supposed to fight. And that was supposed to be a big card here in Columbus, and then got the tickets, paid like $700, have some really good seats, and it got canceled. And so then I had to reach out to SeatGeek and stuff. It took like 3 months to get all that back because it was new to everybody, the whole pandemic. So no one knew what to do at the time. So hopefully this one doesn't get canceled. COVID looks like it's on the decline right now. But let's just hope it stays that way.
Right. So Chuck, man, we actually, since last time we spoke, we actually have a card that happened with a big fight that you previewed. And then we also have some cards coming up in February. You had Francis versus Gane. That was the main event, and Francis came out on top. And I know you were waiting for this moment to like really get in depth with it, besides your tweets that you do during all fight cards, which if you're not following Chuck on Twitter, you really should be following him, especially during UFC fights, because Chuck tweets during every UFC fight and gives his take on all of them. So again, listen to Chuck, but also really follow him on fight nights, because he really does a good job on Saturdays. When there's times where I can't get a pay-per-view, I just go to Chuck's tweets, and then I feel like I'm watching it.
Thank you.
So Chuck, what happened in this pay-per-view, man? Like, let's just start with the top. Let's start with Francis.
All right, so yeah, we're just gonna start with the big blockbuster that everybody was waiting for, which I want to say for the casual fans, it did not live up to the hype that they were expecting. But for the MMA fans, like the true understanders of the fundamentals and what MMA really is, which is mixed martial arts, which is a full incorporation of kickboxing, wrestling, grappling, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. That's what type of fight it was. So when you really get down to it, Francis was gassed. I mean, he was fighting with the torn MCL, as he said later on in the press conference. That's why he came out with the knee pads on. And he did what he was supposed to do. He didn't sit there and gas himself out. He didn't exert too much energy because he's a big guy. He has a lot of muscle, so his muscles will tire out more from going crazy and getting in a bunch of different all-out banging in the booth moments and then they're brawling. He can't fight that type of fight with Ciryl because Cyryl's going to have longevity. He did what he was supposed to do. He put his weight on him. He's the heavier guy in this situation. And he just wrestled him. He out-wrestled him. He showed his raw strength that he has. I mean, you see that he had a good double leg takedown where he picked him up and slammed him. And he just showed that he's Francis for a reason. That body that he has is what makes him an elite heavyweight fighter. And he wrestled and he out-wrestled Ciryl. And for Ciryl, I just think he wasn't as explosive. And he let the weight of Francis start to tire him out. And he got gassed out because he wasn't used to wrestling as much as he would for his other opponents. He's still a very good ground game opponent, but I think that Francis' raw strength is what overpowered him because Ciryl doesn't have the same amount of strength. He's strong and he's built and he's stout, but he just ultimately got beat. Because if you look at it, he landed 79 of 107 of his total strikes, which is 74%. That's a high clip. Francis was 71 for 139, which is 51%. He was beating him on the feet, which was anticipated. But when it got down to it, it was the takedowns. Francis was 4 for 5. Cyryl's never been taken down before. So he landed 80% of his takedowns, and he just fully got on top of him, and he just dominated the fight with ground control time. And so that's exactly what he needed to do. He fought in the game plan, and he won the fight and retained his belt. But if you want to get into the antics that happened afterwards, where Dana didn't want to stay in the ring, didn't put the belt on him.
Yeah, what was up with that?
So obviously, Dana still has his beef with Francis. It's made very apparent. He's a child. He rules the UFC kind of like a tyrant, unfortunately. If you're not his favorite guy or his favorite fighter, and you outspeak and you speak out and you don't want to show that you're satisfied with being in the UFC, he's not going to like you. So he just does these little childish things like not putting the belt on him. He put the belt on Fialho earlier that night, but he didn't stay in for the main event to put the belt on his heavyweight champion. It shows where his feelings really are in the situation.
So with that type of situation, what would Francis, because now he has an MCL injury, he's getting surgery, right?
Yeah, he's going to get that repaired. If not, I think he might have already gotten the surgery and he might be rehabbing right now.
So he's going to be out for a little bit. So if you're Francis and your boss isn't really messing with you like that, even though you like spoke out, you've done nothing like wrong per se. You've never brought like been a negative influence on anyone or negative light into like the UFC. Like, what do? Do you just stay, or like, do you think about going elsewhere? Or
so right now he's in a great position because he just won and he beat the top guy that Dana White thought could beat him, and hopefully Dana White could have marketed to the UFC. So he's in a great leverage position. He has an outlet right now with Tyson Fury. They're talking about maybe doing a boxing match. I can make him millions of dollars. Obviously, you see UFC and boxing. Fighters always fighting now, doing their own promotions, and they end up getting a lot of money and paid out for it. He can definitely pursue that avenue, make a bunch of money. He can chill for the rest of his life, kind of like Conor. But I'm not saying he's Conor status with the level of fighting. He hasn't defended his belt enough to even be at that level yet. But I think he has a great leverage position to be like, okay, well, Dana, you don't want to pay me. Then all right, I'll go get paid somewhere else. But also, you have to think about it. Dana already did an interim belt when he wasn't fighting for like 6 or 7 months because he was rehabbing an injury or something like that. And I just think that Dana White would do something like that again, where he would do an interim belt because he wants someone else that's not Francis holding the belt.
And then there was another thing that you were waiting until we recorded to actually get in depth about. Of course, Jon Jones had to talk after the fight. And Chuck, would you say, like, the tweet made it sound like he's not worried about any of these guys and that he can beat him in a couple seconds. And you said you were going to elaborate when we recorded. So what did Jon mean by his tweets, and what were you thinking?
So when I saw his tweets initially, I'm like, okay, typical Jon Jones. I think he wants to be out there. He wants to be fighting. I think he's at a point in his career where a lot of fans and a lot of people are like, all right, well, enough talk, get out there and go do something. I still don't know what position he's in right now with Dana White and everything and his recent legal troubles. So I don't know how long till we see him fight or if we ever see him fight again. So I think for him, I think it's kind of just hurting not being in competition and not fighting out there and hearing all the noise and banter of, oh, Jon Jones, you better watch out. Oh, Jon Jones, this guy would defeat you if you were in heavyweight. Jon Jones can't come to heavyweight. So he just wants to respond to all the people and all the doubters and all the talkers. Personally, I think he just needs to keep his head down, keep training and doing what he's doing. And if he can get into the UFC and fight at a heavyweight division right now, come and do it. Just keep your head down, stay out of trouble, keep your nose clean, literally and figuratively, and just get stuff done and get your belt and then show people what you can do and that you can fight at a high level.
Is the only thing holding him back the training, or is he still in the legal stuff with that alleged DV?
So I think he's more still in legal trouble. I know that everything got dropped down because it was his wife and she was kind of like, all right, yeah, I want the charges dropped and everything. I think it's kind of some more minor stuff I have to look more deeper into, but I think that he's still just kind of in at edge with Dana because Dana's like, dude, I need you to stop getting in trouble. I need you to keep your head screwed on straight so that way I can market you. Another thing I was going to say, though, is I just think it's more at a point where people are like, actions speak louder than words. They want to see something. They want results. They don't want same empty promises. They want to see you actually come out there and do something and just keep on speaking on it.
Also with Jon too, I feel like anytime someone does something good now in the heavyweight or light heavyweight where it used to be, or if someone gets called the GOAT, he always comes out and like indirectly attacks him. I remember when Khabib retired at 30 or whatever and 0, and everyone was calling him like the GOAT, and then he just started like running through everyone like his stats compared to Khabib's. I'm like, dang man, Khabib's never said anything about you. Like, what is this about?
It's more an ego thing, I think. I think just coming from like a line of three brothers, all of them are like competitive, and I think that he wants to be the best, and I think he wants it to be undoubtedly a fact that he's the best. He wants no discussion about it. He wants it to be Jon Jones is the best, hands down, the best pound for pound fighter, and that's the thing that bothers him is that he's not, and so I think that's why he gets into these little Twitter rants where he goes wide receiver drama mode, looking like Terrell Owens or Chad Ochocinco, and they're going on rants on Twitters and stuff. He needs to stop being Twitter fingers and just go out there and put the work in and go get it done like we know to do.
Once he's fully at heavyweight and he's ready and no trouble, is it going to be a fight first, then title, or is it straight title?
I don't know, because I think with the legal trouble, people are going to be like, well, I want to see him fight first. I think you put Ciryl up against him because Cyryl's someone who just recently lost to the champ. He's still a 2 seed. There's still a bunch of heavyweight fighters that aren't on the same level as him. So it's probably him or Derek Lewis that you put him up against, and you see, okay, he can fight at the heavyweight division, so let's put him up for the title, because we already know what type of elite fighter he has, a background that speaks for himself. It's just whether or not we can see it, but we just want to see if he could implement it into heavyweight or not. Because the big thing about that is he's putting on a lot of weight. He's putting on like 50 pounds. He's not used to having that 50 pounds when he fights. So it's also putting on a healthy 50 pounds. You don't want to just stack on 50 pounds of weight and then you're like, okay, you're not used to moving at that weight. You get tired more quickly. You're not as fast. You have to start getting everything molded correctly in order to fight at that weight.
Gotcha. Chuck, off of this 270 card, were there any decisions that are going to have a big impact with UFC going forward in 2022 besides the main event?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, the fight of the night, Fialho versus Brandon Moreno, another barn burner, another historical fight, and what will be – so this is the first time they had UFC fighters fight each other 3 times in a row for the title. So now you look at the way that fight went down, they're probably going to go for a 4th fight.
Really?
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Everyone wants the 4th fight. You're tied at 1-1-1. So
okay. Yeah,
they want the tiebreaker, because this is the ultimate tiebreaker for it all. And everyone wants a clear-cut winner, because even when you look at that fight that they just had, you don't really have a clear-cut winner. Figueiredo had a very slight edge in that fight. You could have gave it to either fighter in that fight, but Figueiredo ultimately had the takedown advantage, which kind of helped him out right there in the end, because he had the control time on the ground, and that helped him out. Because I think if you look at it, I think Moreno landed 106 260 for 41% to his 95 178. But his significant strikes, and he had more knockdowns, he had more stumbles, he had takedowns. So I think I don't even think Moreno had a knockdown. I think Figueiredo had 3 knockdowns to his 0. So you had to look, he had the slight edge just off of power and off of the impact that he had in the fight. So he had the slight edge in the win. So I can't wait to see these guys go for the 4th fight. They want to probably do it in Brazil or Mexico. I think they're going to actually do it in Mexico, but I wanted to see if they would put it on the Charles Oliveira card versus Gaethje in Brazil. I anticipate something like that being announced soon. So we'll see. I think that's going to be a great 4th fight, and it'll be the one to finally end it for all, unless they tie again.
So with them getting a 4th fight, couldn't that be, I know names maybe for mainstream people, like casuals, they're not big enough, but a 4th fight when you're tied 1-1-1, isn't that enough to main event a card? Like, your guys are the headliners.
Definitely, that's enough to main event a card. But I think because you still have casuals. You still have people who don't really understand combat sports. So they don't really understand the magnitude of these two fighters right here, because this is something that's never happened in this promotion ever before. Mm-hmm. At least even in a mixed martial arts world, you've never seen four fight. You've barely ever seen you've never seen a third fight before. So this is something that's going to be groundbreaking moving forward, because if you have fighters have stuff like this happen again, then it's just going to be more box office hit. You know it's going to sell without a doubt, because it's an electrifying fight 3 times.
Right. Well, that's really nice. That's really good. Any other of these fights besides those 2 fights that are like impactful for the rest of the year?
One that I wanted to take a look at was Michael Morales versus Trevin Giles. Mm-hmm. Michael Morales, really young, really raw. I think he's 22, 23 years old, like same age as me. Yeah, actually, matter of fact, I think he's 21. Very young, very raw. I just see a lot of potential for someone coming in there so young. So that's just a name I wanted to throw out there for people to just keep an eye out for. His UFC debut, went in there, got the knockout, and just really someone to look forward to watching fight.
Looks like he's 13-0 from Ecuador. Yeah, he's 21. He'll turn 22 this June.
Yeah, young fighter out there getting in UFC debut and really just showing the world what he is. You're in a main card for your UFC debut and you're 13-0. The sky's the limit for him right now. Someone definitely I wanted to take a look at.
Wow. Keep an eye out on Michael Morales, guys. 21 years old. Jeez. And he won on a first round TKO.
Yeah.
What
got clipped,
what weight class is he in?
He's in the welterweight.
Okay. Welterweight. Okay.
So look for him fighting like the Colbys and all of them.
Okay. Check any of these other fights before we move on to stuff that's happening in February?
No, none on that one anymore.
So Chuck, man, there's some things going down actually in February. Go ahead and talk about them.
So right now, tomorrow we have a card, Hermanson versus Strickland. It's a smaller card. It's one that not too many people are going to probably watch, but it still should have some fighters to look out for, some UFC debuts and some younger people trying to just make some moves up in the weight divisions and move in the rankings a little bit. And some people trying to earn some numbers next to their name. One that I'm excited for is Tresean Gore versus Brian Battle. Tresean Gore, if you would have saw him on The Ultimate Fighter, the recent season, I think he's going to be explosive. I'm happy to see that he's in the UFC out there about to get his shot and just go and get things done. Not too much else really that on that card that I can speak on too much besides Jack Hermanson and Sean Strickland. It's the number 6 versus number 7 in the middleweight division. So it'll move either one up and one down, and then maybe move one into potential fighting against like a 2 or 3 seed, and maybe moving up to try and get into the number 1 contender to fight for the belt after Adesanya and Whitaker.
Which that will be the main event the day before the Super Bowl?
Yes, it will be. So Saturday, February 12th, so the night before the Super Bowl, there'll be that fight going on in the Toyota Center in Houston. So they'll fight for the second time, which I am looking forward to. I'm anticipating some violence in that fight. I don't know why, but I just think that it's going to be some true violence. I think Robert Whitaker wants to really go out there and get his belt back. He took some time. He grinded it out. He redid his game plan. He's redoing himself as a fighter, and I think he's going to go out there and really try and get his belt back, and he's going to fight with some violence. And he's going to put some pressure on Adesanya that he hasn't felt before, hopefully. And I'm hoping for a big, explosive fight. I kind of want Robert Whitaker in this one.
Is that where you're leading right now?
Yeah, right now I'm leaning towards Whitaker. I just see them trying to maybe move something forward and trying to elevate for number 3, so that way they can get another third fight and see where they can go from there.
Win or lose, Israel, is him and Jon Jones, are they still going back and forth on Twitter, or has that stopped completely?
It stopped recently. Nothing new lately because obviously John's not doing anything. And the more John speaks out, it's really not doing anything but just adding credibility to Adesanya. I anticipate after that fight, win or lose, regardless of who wins in that fight, Jon Jones will have a tweet that night. He'll say something, and he'll definitely say something about the co-main event, Derek Lewis versus Ty. So we're going to see how that goes because he's definitely going to speak out once he sees a number 3 heavyweight contender fighting. He's going to say something, so that way people can always just mention his name.
So you have that the day before the Super Bowl, great planning, dinner on that. Then you have you got Dos Anjos versus, both of their first names are Rafael?
Yeah.
For February 9th, okay. For February 19th. And there's a couple February more fights. And then you get to March 5th, Covington versus Mazda. I mean, that's March 5th.
The battle of ex-best friends.
Wow.
So that one's going to be a very personal fight. So there are definitely 2 brawlers, 2 people who are going to go out there and throw some hands. So that's going to be an electrifying fight for the fans. I think everyone's going to look forward to seeing that one because everyone loves Covington. Everyone loves Masvidal. 2 people who run their mouth, talk a bunch of shit. So it's going to be a bare knuckle fight. They're going to be banging in the booth and sitting there brawling. So I think it's going to be a really good one for the fans.
Who would you favor? I know it's still a month away, but who would you favor right now?
I favor Covington. Okay. I think Covington has shown more of a chance against Usman than Masvidal has. I think in each fight Masvidal had against Usman, you can say Usman definitely outclassed him each time because the first fight, he just whooped his ass, controlled him the whole time. Second fight, knocked him out. Covington, at least, he puts up a fight. He can go to the decision. He can sit there and actually contend with him. He can maybe clip him. He can hurt him. He can actually catch him sometimes. I haven't really seen that too much from Masvidal.
What other? I saw something. I don't know if it was a rumor. I know we got to bring him up, but Conor fighting this summer. Is there any validity to that?
So there's always going to be some announcement or a little hype. You got to keep him somewhat relevant because if he sits out in the dark too long, then everyone's going to forget about him. So Conor's going to obviously just try and make some noise here or there. Say, hey, maybe I might be fighting someone, or call out a few fighters or say this, that, the other, just to make sure his name keeps relevant in everyone's mouth. So that way, if a fight does happen, he will sell as a box office hit. I don't know. Dana's always his buddy, so he can come and go as he pleases. So I wouldn't be surprised if he fought in the summer. Wouldn't be surprised if he fought in December. He'll fight whenever he feels like it, and it'll probably be against someone notable, but not super notable. And if he loses, he'll throw a tantrum. Or if he wins, he's going to say, I want the best, and he'll get the title shot.
I just don't get what his motivation would be unless he wants to be back in it because it's what he loves. It's obviously what made his fortune. But the past couple of years, man, he has not been winning when he fights.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So for some people, they can't accept if they're not at the top anymore. And for some people, I think for him, it's really, you have to put in the work to be back at the top. And the question is, do you want to put in that work to be at the top? Or are you satisfied with the life you already have? And are you content? The thing is, that's what makes true champions, whether you're content or whether or not you want more. Mm-hmm. And right now, I don't know, no one knows really if he wants more or if he's content. Because lately, he's been content.
Okay. And then off of the UFC, because we said this on your first one of the year, how is your journey going with training and all of that, trying to be an amateur fighter?
So recently got my power rack built in my garage, working on buying a wrestling mat, trying to get that set up in the garage too. Got me some training equipment and stuff. So I'm doing a lot of home training right now. A lot of home videos and stuff until I get back to a regularly scheduled program because I'm still working at the hospital. So I'm working 12-hour shifts a day. And I'm just finding the time in between to just lift and stuff. So over the year, I think I was at 215. Right now, I'm currently down at 165. Lost 50 pounds my year and maybe a half. So I'm back to a good weight. Now I'm just trying to get to like 185, 190 walk around weight. So that's the stage I'm at, just trying to get my body back in a healthy state, running, getting cardio in, healthier lifestyle. So I'm just trying to mold my body first before I get back into real raw cut training, because I don't want to just go into it just still in this gas position, not entirely healthy.
Chuck, is there anything else before we sign off today?
Well.
Uh-oh.
Look forward to Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, The Ultimate Fighter. It was just announced probably like maybe 45 minutes ago. The Ultimate Fighter, a new season will be coming out. Obviously, to build up some hype for their next fight when they go up for the belt again. That kind of doesn't catch me by surprise, but at the same time, I can see Amanda maybe losing on purpose, so that way they can promote the UFC, promote the Ultimate Fighters another season, so that way they can build up more fight for those two. I don't know. It sits well with me, but it doesn't sit well with me at the same time, because I feel like Amanda is so much better than what she was that day still. It still doesn't sit well with me.
They just announced that 45 minutes ago?
Yeah, let me check my Twitter timeline, because I know I got the notification not too long ago before I was about to hop on, and I was like, oh, well, I have something else to talk about for sure today. Yeah, that was about 45 minutes to an hour ago.
What card do you think they would fight in this year?
If we got 272 coming up, I'd say probably it'd be about UFC 274, 273. Probably around April, May. I say May because May is usually the time that they do it. Yeah, so they announced it 34 minutes ago. And it's season 30 will premiere on May 3rd on ESPN. So they'll probably actually fight, say, around August, September timeline. And I'd say it's probably like UFC 276.
Okay.
Because you got to put on like a UFC event like every month pretty much. So that'll probably be the timeline of it.
Anything else?
No, that's all I got for right now. Just look out for all these new no-name fighters coming in. A lot of people on their grind to the UFC. Look out for Matt Miller when he comes and fight in Columbus. Hometown favorite. I'll be rooting for him. Hopefully go to his gym soon out here in Dublin.
With that being said, thank you, Chuck, for being our UFC expert. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C podcast. Again, during pay-per-views, UFC fight cards, make sure you follow Chuck on Twitter. Like I said earlier, I know sometimes buying those things could be a hassle, driving somewhere to go watch it, or even trying to watch by other means could be a hassle because of streaming issues, internet issues, all that. So if you can't do any of that, get on Twitter. Chuck, what's your handle?
Chuck the Duck MMA. Reach out to me on Twitter. If you're having trouble with the fight or anything, or trying to keep up with it, just DM me. I can help you, keep you up to date on everything, and give you the latest feed.
Chuck does a really good job updating. There are times where I'm just like, oh, man, I got to wake up early on Sunday, not going to make it. I don't even check SportsCenter to see who wins the fights. I go to Chuck's tweets and then follow from the fights I didn't get to watch up to the main event if I didn't make it through the night. So I'm telling you, guy does a really good job on Twitter with that. And yeah, with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.